Good afternoon, guys, and welcome to the podcast. And wherever you are, hopefully you and your families and loved ones is safe from the snowstorm or fires. And so today we have a guest, Rhonda Britten, and she is an Emmy Award winner. She got reality TV episodes. She's an author. She's a life coach, keynote, and she's been an expert on national TV and radio for the last 30 years. And so she solves and helps individuals overcome fear that holds them back from achieving their personal and professional potential. So I'm really happy to have her on to provide actionable tools and insights to help people overcome self-doubt, build confidence, live fearlessly. So Rhonda, welcome.
Thank you. I am so excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm really happy because we were able to get through all of the scheduling and happy to have you on.
Yeah.
So
We're finally together. Finally together. Yes.
yeah, so briefly introduce yourself and I'm excited for the conversation.
Well, I think you just did so lovingly. So I help people and support people in mastering fear. And the challenges is my number one challenge in the beginning of the journey is that people don't even know they have fear. So, when I was going through my worst times of my life, I didn't think I was afraid. If somebody would have said, "Oh, Rhonda, are you scared?" I would have been like, "No." So I think most people, or I should say many people, are probably like I have been, which is unaware that fear is the driving force. Most people think it's, well, my problems are I procrastinate, or I'm a perfectionist, or I'm a people pleaser, I get overwhelmed, I'm anxious, I compare, I judge, et cetera, et cetera. And they think those are the things that are holding them back. And they think that those are character flaws, right? They think, "Oh, I gotta solve this. I gotta quit. I gotta learn to put down good boundaries up. I gotta put boundaries. I gotta learn to say no. I gotta say no. Really, I gotta do it. Or I gotta be disciplined. I gotta get down to business, right? So they're constantly berating themselves, believing that they are actually the issue, instead of understanding how our neurobiology works and how fear is at the crux and the instigator of all of those fear responses, what I call fear responses. So people are focused on the responses rather than the fear itself. And I like to say, okay, you got these responses, but let's take care of the fear. Let's just talk about the fear, shall we? So I come in at the root level rather than the symptom level.
Hmm. Fascinating. And you mentioned a lot of symptoms and characteristics of fear driving people. And one of those was perfectionism. And what's interesting,
Yes.
I never thought perfectionism is people driven by fear, but I heard this
Mhm.
quote from someone, John Lee Dumas, and he was saying that people that are perfectionists are cowards because they are afraid of the fear of failure. So elaborate on that.
Well, so I have a philosophy of I've created something. Let me back up. I've created something that basically maps your fear, and it is called the wheel of fear. And so everybody has, you have one, I have one. We all have a wheel of fear. We're born with it, i.e., it develops by the time we're 6, 5, 6, 7. And so you have a wheel of fear, I have a wheel of fear, and it's created in order to keep us safe, right? And so people will say to me, "Well, Rhonda, I'm already fearless." And usually they're talking about physical fears. Well, physical fears, instincts stay alive, sure. And your physical fears probably don't impact every single day of your life, but your emotional fears do. So perfectionism, right, is a symptom of an emotional fear. So I believe that each person has a unique core fear. And once you understand the unique core fear, the fear responses alter. They change, they minimize, the frequency lessens, the intensity lessens, the length it lasts lessens. So that person who is talking about perfectionism and it's a fear of failure, well, for somebody it could be a fear of failure, or it could be a fear of loss, or it could be a fear of the unknown, or it could be a fear of success. So to equate one fear with one symptom is short-sighted. Now, I do agree that perfectionism, i.e., are cowards in the sense of they're driven by fear and they're not conscious that they're cowards, right? Because that's not how it works. We're not walking around being cowards. We're walking around thinking we're not good enough.
Mm.
And when we start recognizing that unconscious and conscious conversation we're having with ourselves that there's something wrong with us, and I've got to fix myself, and I've got to get better, and I've got to be more, and I've got to, et cetera, et cetera. Or we go into blaming the world, right? There's that other part. You either blame yourself or blame the world. So if you blame yourself, you're focused on like I said a minute ago, fear responses. So you're focused on, I got to quit being a perfectionist. Again, great, great goal to have. Yes, yes, I want you to give up that perfectionism. And the wheel of fear itself doesn't care what your response is. So think about it this way: the wheel of fear, think of it as the root, and that there's, like little buds growing off that root, right? And each bud is a fear response. So, overwhelm, anxiety, perfectionism, procrastination, etc. So let's say you get rid of perfectionism and got that, you went to perfectionism school and you nailed it, and you're like, yeah, that's that thing, right? And so you get rid of it and you're like on fire. Well, fear doesn't care. It'll just develop a new one. It'll just pop a new bud out. So it is not attached to how it keeps you safe. It only cares that it keeps you safe. It doesn't care if you solve your perfectionism issue or your procrastination issue or your overwhelm issue. So those are just, like I said, symptoms. So we want to go and address the fear itself so that we can have a relationship with it, so that we can start seeing it differently and it can start seeing us differently.
Fascinating. And so, and then because a lot of the audience, I asked that because a lot of the audience, they are high achieving and they're perfectionists. We got surgeons in the
Yes.
audience. You got to be perfect, otherwise your patient's gonna die.
And God bless them for that, right? God bless them, right? So, I mean, as a surgeon, God bless you for being maybe a little narcissistic and thinking you're the greatest in the world. And, we need our surgeons to be like that. But we also need our surgeons to come home and be human beings, right? We need them to have different qualities. So a masterful human being can bring that perfectionism to the surgical center, but when they go home, they can drop that and not bring that home. And that is not as easy to do.
Yeah. The next thing that you mentioned is procrastination. And how does fear fit with procrastination?
Well, procrastination is, our inability or unwillingness to take risk, right? So procrastination is all about risk taking. I don't want to take that risk, so I'm procrastinating. And that risk might be going into the unknown. I don't know what's going to happen. Am I going to be successful? Am I going to be a failure? Is it going to work? Is it not going to work? So what am I going to say to people? So procrastination, perfectionism all have that same quality of, I don't know. I don't know if I'm good enough. I don't know if I can handle it. I don't know if again, however the person describes it, A, B, C, or D. So procrastination, I actually have a gift for your listeners to help them solve their procrastination, to give them one tool that will support them in moving forward. So if you have a dream, a goal, something you want to make happen and haven't been able to, go on over to fearlessliving.org /risk, /risk, and go and put your name and your email. And I'm going to give you a class called Stretch, Risk, or Die. And that is going to support you in seeing how fear operates when it comes to procrastination in your dreams. And it's 3 15-minute videos. And in the last video, I actually describe in detail the wheel of fear. So you can see it all.
Yeah. And for the audience out there, these links will be in the show notes. One thing that's interesting is because I'm a big fan of Oprah, and she talked about what forgiveness is. And it's just kind of like you forgive the person, but you don't forgive the act. So how do you address how to forgive the unforgivable?
Mm. Well, I have an exercise because I had to forgive the unforgivable. When I was 14 years old, my parents were in the middle of a separation, and my father came over for Father's Day to take us out to brunch. And as he walks in the house, he's like, let's go, let's go, let's go, because that's what dads do. My sisters are in the bathroom fighting it out. I'm in the bedroom with my mom, and she's fluffing up her beehive hairdo and her blue eyeshadow, putting it on. And my dad again says, let's go, let's go, let's go. And me and my mom start walking towards the back door with my father to go out to the car to get going. My sister's still in the bathroom fighting it out. And as me and my mother walk out, it starts sprinkling. And so my father says, I got to get my coats from the car. And his coat is this tan Naugahyde leisure suit coat, which is really hot back then. And as he opens his trunk, I note that he does not grab a coat, but he grabs a gun. And he starts yelling at my mother, "You made me do this. You made me do this." And he fires. And I start screaming, "Dad, what are you doing? Dad, what are you doing? Stop, Dad, what are you doing?" And he cocks the gun again, points it at me. And I absolutely believe I'm next. He blinks, I blink. He doesn't breathe, I don't breathe. I blink, he blinks. And then my mother, with her last breath, literally screams out, "No, don't." And my father, realizing my mother's still alive, takes that bullet intended for me and shoots my mother a second time. And that second bullet goes through my mother's abdomen out her back and lands in the car horn. And for the next 20 minutes, all I hear is, eh. And then my father cocks the gun one more time, puts it to his head and fires. So in a matter of 2 minutes, I was the sole witness of watching my father murder my mother and commit suicide. So when you talk about forgiving the unforgivable and how do you forgive somebody who murders your mother in front of you? How do you forgive somebody who commits suicide in front of you? How do you forgive somebody who leaves a 14-year-old, 13-year-old, and 18-year-old orphaned? How do you forgive that?
Mhm.
Well, one of the things that I did is, first of all, I thought I did forgive them. Intellectually, I did forgive them. I was planning to be a minister when I was 12, so here I am 14, and I'm like, "Oh, I forgive him," because I knew that was the right thing to do, right? I forgive him. No, I'm fine. I'm forgive him. And I just basically split in two that day. The outside me, which was I'm fine, everything's fine, who got the full ride to college, etc. And the internal me who was like, "I didn't save my mother. I don't get to be happy. I don't get to have a good life because if you see your mother die and you don't do anything, you don't kick his shins, you don't grab the gun, you don't get to be happy." Right.
Mhm.
So that is what I entered the world with, this feeling of I just have to hide. I just have to hide because I can't have anybody know the real me. So I'm just going to pretend my way through life. And I don't think I'm alone with that. I think a lot of people do that.
Mhm.
And then I discovered alcohol and became an alcoholic and got 3 DUIs and I tried to kill myself 3 times. And it was that third suicide attempt that I realized that I'm not very good at killing myself and I better figure out another way. And one of those ways was forgiving the unforgivable, to go back and truly look at my forgiveness. Again, intellectually, I had always told myself I forgave him. But when it really came down to it, of course, in my inner soul, in the heart of hearts, there was a lot of forgiveness work to do. So
Mhm.
I actually came up with an exercise that I use for people that have a difficult time forgiving the unforgivable. And if you want me to share it, I'd be happy to.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so this is the exercise I came up with in order to forgive my father. We hear about forgiveness letters. Those are lovely. I absolutely love forgiveness letters. But if you're not able to write one at this point, if you're not able to do that step, then do this one instead. So you take a piece of paper
Mhm.
and you put a line down the middle. Okay, so you have two columns. On the left hand side, you write the person's name or the organization's name, or because might need to forgive an organization or a church or school, right? You might need to forgive that or a group of people. So put the person's name, the group, etc. on the left hand side. The right hand side, write the words, "I'm willing to forgive you." Now, you as a doctor understand that new neural pathways need to be created. We need to shift those neural pathways. The challenge, as you know, is that we stay in that neural pathway in that rut, and we're unable to move and shift and create new ones, right? So, what I do is I help people have a place that they're safe to share whatever they want, as well as in the same moment focus on what they truly want, right? So on the left hand side, you say one sentence. It's one sentence at a time. So let's say I think about put my dad up there. First sentence I think of back then was, "Why did you do this to us?" Right? Or, "I hate you." Right? Or, "I'll never forgive you." Right? So write one sentence, and then on the right hand column, write, "I'm willing to forgive you." Go back to the left-hand column. "No, I'm not. I'm never going to forgive you." Go back to the right-hand column. "I'm willing to forgive you." "How could you blah, 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 blah." "I'm willing to forgive you." So you're basically learning to live in the gray area, the paradox, and live in both worlds, i.e., allow yourself to be fully human, but also focus your attention on what you really want. Now, I'll say one more thing. Some people are not willing to forgive. So maybe write down, "I'm willing to be willing to forgive one day in the future, and I don't know when." but allow yourself to have your human experience, as well as getting really clear that what your end result, what you're looking for is that you do want to lay this burden down and you want to forgive. So that's a fantastic exercise. Do it until you're exhausted. You might do it for 3 pages, 8 pages, 5 pages, and you might need to do it more than once, but it does create a new pathways for you to see the gray area, the again, the paradox of living in both worlds.
Mm. And on, a corollary of that is, for example, I've had guests who have also gone through horrific, incidents. And what I ask is like forgiveness. So, I've been just trying to get more insight because we all gone through pains and hurts. So, forgiveness, let's say you do all these exercises, you forgive, and then, let's say your perpetrator or whoever caused that hurt, you see them, 15, 20 years later and they're
Sure.
out of the road, they're bleeding to death. Do you go and save them, or do you say,
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%.
Mm, inter-
Right. I mean, because I understand that there is a human being wrapped up in a spirit.
mm,
And I believe fundamentally that we're here for reasons. We may or may not know. We think we know, maybe we don't know.
mm,
But I want to honor that spirit, that soul, and I want to believe in humanity. So if I don't save him, then I am just like him. And I do not want to make that choice because that pollutes my soul. That covers me with the smear of the betrayal or the hurt or the suffering or the pain. So no, I'm gonna pull over and save him.
mm. Interesting. Yeah, I've had different responses. And so the other thing is that what I found interesting is you've had, so one thing is talking about is a lot of people talk about, this is not for me. I'm not afraid of anything. What would you say to them?
I would say, wow, congratulations. That's pretty amazing. Because you need to validate their perception of themselves, right? So it's like, yeah, you go. Actually, had this happen. This guy showed up at my book signing for my first book, Fearless Living, in Atlanta, Georgia. And he was like 6'4", and he's a big guy. And he goes, I came in here to tell you I'm fearless. And I'm thinking, really? You got in your car, drove all the way over here to tell me you're fearless. Okay, all right. So I said, great. Oh my God, that's so amazing. Congratulations. I said, hey, can I give you a little test? And he's like, yeah, go ahead. And I go, okay, so can you say I love you first? Can you say I'm sorry? Can you ask for forgiveness?
Mm,
Can you forgive? Have you let go of every hurt, pain, and suffering that you've experienced? Do you look at the world with open heart or do you close it? Right. So I asked him all these questions, and you can imagine his face went, no. So most people think of that physical, that fearlessness as this physical thing. Like I have so many people, I jump out of planes. I'm pretty fearless. And again, I give them the quiz, which by the way, I have lots of fear responses. Like, do you ever whine? Do you ever defend yourself? Do you ever settle? Do you ever worry, struggle, blame? Do you ever feel bitter, entitled, right? Victimized, right? So when you give somebody this quiz, all of a sudden they start going, oh crap. Oh crap. Okay. All right. Well, you're talking about those things. Yeah, I'm talking about those things. I'm talking about the emotional way that you move through the world, not that you can jump out of a plane. Okay, good for you. Yay. But if you're not going to jump out of a plane every day and that's not your profession, I think your relationships, when you say you meet somebody, go, I jump out of planes, I don't think that's going to help you on an emotional level to connect with human beings, right? And to have loving relationships. So I give them a quiz, and then their face 100% of the time goes, wow. And that's the opening of the moment where you bring them down to reality so that they can see who they really are, i.e., that there's a whole human being under there. And I'm not just interested in their physical attributes and their courage and amazingness and, oh, wow. No, I want to know how well you love.
Interesting. Yeah, it's quite interesting because individuals that say I'm not afraid, usually there's something life will throw a wrench in and usually show them, they're human.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Because that's how life works. That's how life works. And
Yeah.
so, somebody was interviewing me the other day and they were talking about how to become, how to surrender, how to become fearless. And I said, well, it takes great humility to say I'm wrong, right? That I have been on a path of trying to protect myself without knowing it. And I thought strength, jumping out of planes. I thought, being tough. I thought it was the way.
Mm.
But like you said, humility is part of our pathway, and we access that usually through a place of vulnerability. And if you're not willing to be vulnerable, you're not willing to connect with human beings.
Mm.
So if you feel lonely, if you feel distraught, if you feel isolated, well, I would ask you, how vulnerable are you willing to be? And how much are you willing to open your heart? And how much are you willing to connect and go first? Because too many people are waiting to be saved and waiting to be pulled out of their cave. And maybe you're the one that has to walk out.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. Final question, because in your bio, it's interesting. It has you on set with Oprah, and I'm curious,
Mhm.
what was the major theme, or what was it like just being in her presence? I know because she's been an inspiration for a lot of people. She got her own
Sure.
so share with that.
Well, I've been on a couple times, so it was different Oprahs both times. So the first time I was on, she and I could talk through every break. And she's a big fan of Marianne Williamson's. And so I had brought her the latest Marianne Williamson cassette. That's how long ago that was, my first time on Oprah. And I brought her a cassette and she's like, oh, you get it. Yeah. Okay. Got it. And so we sat and talked during the breaks. It was lovely. And the next time I was on I was the expert on resilience. And they were telling stories about, of course, forgiving the unforgivable, things that have happened to people. And so the times I've been on Oprah, and the times I've been on most TV shows, i.e., in the sense of Steve Harvey, et cetera, we're usually talking about things like resilience or, fearlessness or freedom or how to access your purpose and, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what people come to me for.
Mm. How can people find out more about you? Check out your book. I'm going to check that out as well. And
Yeah, yeah. Fearless Living is my first book. I also wrote Change Your Life in 30 Days. Do I Look Fat in This? And Fearless Living. But go to fearlessliving.org, fearlessliving.org. And if you want to grab the course, fearlessliving.org/risk. But just go to fearlessliving.org. You can find everything out about me, or just Google Rhonda Britten and you'll find out lots about me. And you'll be able to figure out lots of ways to connect with me. But join my membership, be a part of my community, get the tools you need, work with me privately, however you like to work. And I've trained over 500 coaches. So if not me, work with one of my other coaches.
yeah, I
And
really,
my job, my goal is to help the world live the life their soul intended.
yeah.
Uh, and so any way I can help you do that, I'm here.
Mm. I love that. I really enjoyed this conversation, and for the audience, it's really a master class in facing your fears, and keep up the great work, and glad you keep safe.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Be fearless. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just fear. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just fear. Be fearless.